Hi, everyone. Thanks for dialing into our Hangout on Air. Today, we're going to talk about universal app campaigns. My name is Lee Jones, and I lead our global product commercialization team here. And I'm also joined by my special guests today from Zynga, who are going to share some insights around how they've embraced universal app campaigns and also some advice in general for developers and marketers. Real quickly, here's what we're going to cover. For those of you who aren't familiar with universal app campaigns, we're going to do a quick refresh on our product. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can take advantage of some of these key features. But beyond just our products, we're going to share some ideas for how you can think organizationally about embracing some of the tools that we have, and also some strategies for improving your app's performance. And then finally, we're going to do a Q&A with Sandy and Jacqueline from Zynga, who have some great insights to share. So real quickly, here's a quick background on universal app campaigns. If you're not familiar with it, universal app campaigns is Google's app promotion product. We have a campaign that can run on Android and a campaign that can run on iOS. And on Android, we're able to, with one campaign, show your ad across the Android Play Store, where we have search ads as well as display ads, Google Search on the web, web ads on Google Chrome, or sorry, on any web browser, YouTube ads, both video and display, and also ads in Gmail. And the power of universal app campaigns is that it lets you run ads across all those properties to hit your objective. And in terms of your objective, we give you multiple choices here. Let's say you want to drive installs. You can set up a campaign that maximizes your ability to drive installs across iOS or Android. Let's say you care more about a certain in-app action. We also have a campaign where we can drive an install, but optimize for in-app actions that matter to you, whether it's a purchase in a game or somebody completing an event. And the last piece, this is going to be in beta now, but we'll talk a little bit more about it. We also have the ability to bid based on dynamic values. And what that means is that you can set different values for different events that occur in your app, and you can bid accordingly and weight those events based on what matters to your business. I used to be a history teacher, so I always like to start with a quick history lesson. And so to understand how we got to universal app campaigns, I wanted to start briefly with just a quick overview of the app promotion marketing history. Back in 2008, the iPhone came out. I'm sure you all remember, and if you don't, it was very exciting. And what you're seeing here is one of the first ads on the iPhone, and this was an ad for Battle Bears, which was a game. And this was from AdMob, and AdMob was one of the first companies to put ads on the iPhone. I started at AdMob in 2010, and we spent a lot of our time back then just trying to help people make sure that their apps were downloaded in a short amount of time so that they could boost their rank in the app stores. And that was really the name of the game for app marketing in its early days. And as marketing got more sophisticated for apps, we added in all the controls that people were used to for other digital campaigns. Demographics became a great proxy for optimization or honing in on targets that were, or customers that were most valuable for your app. Well, now we're entering what I call intelligent growth as the next wave of app marketing. And this is really an opportunity for marketers to think even more strategically about how they drive value and really make apps work for their business. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking a little bit about intelligent growth and some of the best practices that we suggest marketers consider. So what is intelligent growth? Intelligent growth really comes down to these three key pillars. And as a marketer, the companies that seem to be really embracing and winning in app marketing think about all of these. First and foremost, they think about and understand what makes a customer valuable in their app. And to do that, you need analytics. And so you need to understand, after the install, what are people doing that matters? And how can you improve that experience? The second piece is really this idea of treating segments differently, and that's how you tailor your message so that you can increase the value or drive even more valuable customers in acquisition. And the third one is this idea of intelligence at every step of the journey. So not just thinking about acquisition, but really how you optimize the entire customer journey. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these pillars. So thinking about customer value first, This is some survey data that we have from eMarketer, and what they found was that 80% of marketers, app marketers, closely track the cost of acquiring users relative to their lifetime value or profitability. So in addition to caring about an install, all of these customers are looking at their sort of value of the user beyond the install, whether that's using the app twice a week or making multiple purchases if it's a retail app or game. We also know that 78% of app marketers are more focused on quality installs than they were a year ago. So this is a growing trend in the business, and as more and more apps are in the App Store, it's really incumbent on marketers to understand who their valuable customers are and feed that into their acquisition strategy. So let's talk a little bit about how you can do that. First and foremost, you need the right analytics in place. You could use a free tool like Google Analytics. You could use Adobe, a Mixpanel, whoever it may be, to really understand what are the steps in the user journey that are valuable to you. And we know on average, this is a study from Radium One, that 85% of the value typically is driven by 15% of users. So the goal here is really to grow that 15% by making smarter decisions and understanding who your customers are. And the simplest way to do this is to first understand, like, what are the things that matter to you in your app? It could be something simple like spending more than 2 days, or sorry, opening the app twice in the first week after downloading it. It could be adding an item to a shopping cart, or it could be the actual value of a purchase. So the next phase is, once you understand the actions that matter to you and you have a good good baseline in terms of the analytics that you are looking at on a regular basis, then you can start to factor that into your acquisition strategy. And we have this idea of treating segments differently. And really what we've done with Universal App Campaigns is we've said, rather than trying to guess the keywords or the demographics of the people, if we can understand the objectives that matter to you, we can improve the value of our installs. And so it could be that your objective is installs. That's straightforward. We will maximize the number of people who install your app. But if you're able to share with us the in-app events that matter or the values of certain events, we can proactively go out and find users that are more likely to hit those goals. One of the examples that I use regularly is my mother-in-law. She was the number one ranked Angry Birds player in the world, and she's not in sort of your typical demographic. And the point is, if all you were doing was targeting or guessing a demographic group, you might miss out on people like my mother-in-law, who are actually one of the highest paying users in a game. The same could be true for other categories too. So one of the benefits of this optimization is that it's sort of objective and blind. It will find people based on what they do versus what they look like. And our goal is that if you can teach our optimization to be smarter about the things that matter to you, we can really improve our ability to drive quality installs out of the gate. And historically, when you ran campaigns, let's say you ran a search campaign or a YouTube campaign, you would start broadly, and then after several weeks or so, you'd take a look and see which installs drove the most value, which users were most valuable, and then you'd attempt to go back and retroactively optimize. You'd bid more for certain placements, you'd turn off certain placements, or maybe you'd adjust the keywords. And this works. The problem is there's a bit of a lag time. And so what we're really hoping to do with Universal App Campaigns is reduce that lag time and really drive more value for you out of the gate. So the final concept here is this idea of intelligence at every step. And I wanted to share a stat from a research study we did with Bain. Bain surveyed several thousand marketers across all categories worldwide, and they found that 86% of marketers said, and CMOs, that by 2020, they expect to own the entire customer journey for their company. And that means everything from user acquisition to, if you're an app marketer, the entire customer experience. And so this is really important, I think. And just to give you some context for what this means, this could be everything from optimizing the different in-app events that matter to you. It could be experimenting with the first open page. And it could even be experimenting with the App Store landing pages too. And this is a great study from the Play team. And they found with this customer, My Virtual Bear, that they were able to improve install rates by 20 to 30% just by improving the App Store landing pages, shortened messaging, better graphics, and that had a fundamental change on their performance of their acquisition campaigns. So the key takeaway here is that you cannot only look at your optimization by marketing channel. You also have to consider how you're improving and constantly experimenting with the entire journey. Here's another great example from Angry Birds, and this shows you how many different app icons they test on a regular basis just to improve their app conversion rates. And so one of the best practices we've seen with companies that are doing this really well is that, and this could be for a small developer or a large company, but making sure that there's dialogue between the people who are managing user acquisition, who think about business intelligence or analytics and data science, and the actual developers who can make changes in your game or in your app to improve the user experience. So these are the types of questions that we think really typify this phase of intelligent growth. And these are hopefully questions that you're already asking with your, within your company or within your team. First, do you have the right tracking and analytics in place? You really need to have data, right, to make better decisions. Who are your most valuable users and what are the actions that they're taking? How should I optimize in-app events to drive higher engagement? Are you experimenting with what in-app events matter? And how often should you refresh some of the content in your app? And then finally, are your developers, marketing, and BI teams, business intelligence teams, all working together and having a dialogue? Okay, so that's our sort of quick tips on intelligent growth. Now I'm going to share a little bit more about what's coming soon for Universal App Campaigns. Real quickly, a sneak peek, we're working on a lot more placements for Universal App Campaigns. We're hoping in the near future to launch app promotion ads in YouTube search, as well as 6-second campaigns, which we call bumpers. And these are 6-second videos that are really designed to capture users' attention on a mobile device. We find that with 6 seconds, you can quickly showcase some of the best features of your app or your game and really catch people's attention. We're also doing a lot more on Universal App Campaigns to improve reporting, give you more insights. Our goal is to actually give you insights that help you improve your app or make informed decisions about your business beyond just the actions that you take on your Universal App Campaign. We're also working on bid landscapes. And so we have this for installs, but we also want to launch this for in-app events so that you can make predictive decisions around how to increase the volume and value of your acquisitions based on installs, based on the prediction for people actually committing an in-app event after the install. So we're excited about this. We're also excited to announce target ROAS bidding. So we have a beta right now, and this lets you set dynamic values. So it could be that you would like to bid $2 for an install, $3 for somebody that opens or gets to level 2 of your game, or $10 for people that actually complete an in-app purchase within the first 7 or 14 days. This is a beta for now, but we're hoping to launch it in the near future. If you're interested in joining the beta, please contact a Google account representative. We're also planning to add more inputs to Universal App Campaigns. So this is also going to be a beta, hopefully in Q1 or late Q4, where you're actually able to pass us some of the device IDs or email addresses of folks that you already know are valuable. And let's say you have one game and you want to cross-promote to another, this would allow you to do so. So we're excited about that. And now we're going to transition into our conversation with Zynga. And so I'm pleased to welcome and very excited to have 2 of our top leading app marketers in the business. Why don't you introduce yourselves, please?
Thanks, Lee. We are pleased to be here. And my name is Sandy Shen. I'm user acquisition manager at Zynga. Been there for almost 4 years. And my colleague Jassy and I handle user acquisition for 16 titles.
Good morning, everybody. It's definitely, thank you for having us. My name is Jasi Wu, and I'm a senior manager at Zynga, and I've been in user acquisition for about 3 years now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Why don't we start with just some questions around your, or some thoughts around your experience with UAC, Universal App Campaigns. Why don't you share what you like or don't like about Universal App Campaigns?
What I really like about UAC is the ease of management. I think the setup and optimization, it's very simple and straightforward. You know, this really allows us to take us away from the nitty-gritty daily grinding that we're used to doing to a more strategic thinking.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jasi about the easy management. It saves us huge amount of time, and we can focus more on the larger strategy. For example, we work more closely with our BI team to think about which event we need to optimize towards.
Yes, and I really believe that UAC really works for us because, as Sandy said earlier, we are a lean team managing a vast portfolio of 16 games.
So 16 games, historically, when you say free up more time to have strategic conversations with BI, historically you'd be spending 16 campaigns with managing keywords, placements.
Yeah, we kind of manually optimize towards keywords, placement, and into individual game, into individual ad group. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So for folks, there are probably many folks who are dialed in today who have worked with Google for a while now, and they probably have their search and YouTube campaigns. And if we're moving everyone to Universal App Campaigns in November, maybe you could share more about sort of how you thought about making this transition, feeling comfortable with the change, and what advice would you give other folks for how to think about the switch to Universal App Campaigns?
For Zynga, I think we moved into UAC. We started rolling into UAC for 2 months before the migration announcement. So we start rolling into 2 to 3 games at the beginning to test what's going on, to learn from there. Yeah, for the advice, I would say just try it out and see what's going on.
Great. So don't freak out. Give it a shot. Make sure you feel comfortable with all the best practices. And okay, great. And what versions of Universal App Campaigns are you running? And if people saw the presentation earlier and they were new, they might have seen, okay, well, I care about installs, but I also care about some actions. How do you think about the different Universal App Campaigns?
So for us, we actually try everything, I would say, install events, action, and value. So at first, we don't have really big picture about this because it's also a new product for us. So we just test it out, and then we find well combination for each genre, each geo, and then we feel comfortable to move to UAC. Yeah.
Yes. With regards to performance, I will have to say that installs advanced, UAC for actions, and values do really work for us. However, I want to say that it really depends on what game you have, which genre it is in, or where it is in the maturity curve, or even your goal, and even the monetization, the in-game monetization, that model. It really depends on all these mechanics.
That's a great point. So there's no one size fits all per se, but it all starts with what are you trying to achieve, and maybe it changes over time.
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like experimentation's key. Having some threshold for being willing to try and fail too. But I guess my next question would be at what point did you feel comfortable with UAC, and what made you feel comfortable making that shift?
I would say after we try everything and we find well combination for genre, for geo, and also we take our account managers suggest wait for 2 weeks to let the machine learning kick in, and then we see performance hit or beat our goal, and also So and then we feel we start have confidence to roll into UAC. And also the most important thing is after we run the campaign for a while, we do see the performance still stabilize in certain level, and then make us confident to roll everything into UAC.
So that's, I think, a really important point too, where if all you care about is installs, you might have a smaller window, right? But if you're actually optimizing for an event that occurs 7 or 14 days after the install, it's really important to wait that period of time to see the results before making any changes as well.
So you really need to wait the machine learning kick in, and then you will see the result.
Okay. It's a little bit like a fine wine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What were some of the initial fears or hesitations you had, making this change? And what advice would you give other folks?
Yeah, we were definitely very hesitant in the beginning because, as you know, UAC is a brand new tool. We don't know how it behaves, how it will react, or even the performance, right? Will the UAC campaign performance even match or even exceed our standalone campaign's performance?
Sure.
I think that is the biggest question that we have.
Yeah, and for us, initial fear is like we test here and there. We don't have big picture, so we hit like how to scale our campaign. After we scale really hard, the performance drop. Because this is just like initial fear. Because after like 2 to 3 weeks after we have like experiments, and then we feel like let's find a well combination and then go into it, and then we feel comfortable.
That's great. So I think just paraphrasing for the audience, then it's willingness to experiment, but not giving up either, right? With anything new, you might have to pick different in-app events or adjust your bids in a fundamentally different way than you're used to. So I think that's a good takeaway as well.
Yeah.
What would you say and maybe that was, but what would you say were the easiest or hardest parts of the transition for you?
I would say the easiest part, of course, is the campaign setup. So, because it's really, really straightforward, it's really easy. And also the second one, I will say the optimization, because you just let the machine learning take it, and we don't really need to do manually optimization every day. Yeah.
The hardest part, I would say, is just letting it go, right? We're so used to having full control of our campaigns with the standalones, being able to nitpick every single thing, or even splicing and dicing keywords, optimization, placements, etc. Right? There's multiple levers of targetings and levers that we push and pull. That with UAC, it's taking a different approach to that. And now those levers no longer exist. So I think the lack of control over the system is definitely an adjustment that is something that needs time for us to adjust to and get used to.
Great point. And then also, in many ways, we think of it as like the controls are changing, right? And if you're optimizing for a post-install event, your new control becomes, how do you bid for that in-app event, or how do you pick that event? And I think maybe another good question here would be, you mentioned earlier that UAC allowed you more time to engage with your business intelligence team. Was that happening naturally? And what advice would you give folks on the audience here who want to have conversations like that, but maybe haven't had the chance to?
We do work cross-functionally with our BI team. I think it's been like that for a very long time. But now more than ever, it's most important to be able to loop them around conversations about looking for events, testing new events, looking for those triggers that actually makes a huge affecting your bottom line revenues, right? Looping them into conversations for product development, roadmaps. That will only allow us to plan ahead and be able to acquire users in a much more sophisticated manner.
Yeah, and I will say maybe introduce your BI team to the Google Account Manager and also Google Analytics team. So if we have issue or we have problem, we just get together and then we will be on the same page, and I will say it will make your work like more efficient.
That's a great point. So like making sure that everyone's familiar with the products, but also, have shared goals, right? That you're trying to hit.
Yes.
Okay, good advice. How do you see universal app campaigns as part of your broader growth strategy? You've got 16 apps.
Yeah, I mean, 16 games, right? Yeah. With UAC now allows us to really focus on those high priority games and let the other games run on the side with little management. Now with those high priority games, we're able to look into new geos, like a geo expansion, new markets and territories that we've not tapped yet. Now I have more time to look into creatives as well as testing new events.
Great.
And basically looking for a way to actually capture those most valuable users for our app. These things allow us to really expand growth and scale for our apps. And at the same time, we pull back based off of performance.
That's awesome. So in many ways, it gave you the time to think about what's new, what's next, how do you expand
Yes.
versus just,
Yes.
spending a lot of time trying to get campaigns to work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's great. Okay. You saw some of the upcoming features that we're thinking about. Just speaking for the product team and my team, like a big part of what we look for is smart partners to help us inform the roadmap. And we really view UAC as something that we want to learn from folks like Zynga. So I'm curious to hear from you, like, what else would you like to see from UAC in the future?
I have a whole list of like my wish list kind of, but I think a lot of them focus around the creatives, right? Being able to do A/B testing, like creative testing, is really important
Sure.
for us. A more comprehensive report on creatives would be nice to have, like maybe insights on audiences, right? Even as little as being able to pause those assets on the actual UX or even download the data at scale, that would be nice to have. It will really help us a lot.
Awesome.
Yes, because when we are like rotate the creatives, we need to delete creatives and then upload it. If we can just pause and store the like history data in it, it will be super nice for us.
Fantastic. And I believe we are working on some of those features. So please keep the feedback coming.
Definitely.
I guess the final question I have for you both is maybe beyond just Google and Universal App Campaigns, what advice would you give to other app marketers or developers who are dialed in today?
I would say don't be afraid of any changes. Just give it a try, just a little bit try. Like Zynga, we roll into 2 to 3 games at the beginning, as I say, and then like give some time, 2 to 3 weeks, let the machine learning take in, and you will see the good results, and you will learn from there. Yeah.
I would like to add in that I think this is the best time to work closely with your Google representative. With this whole transition that we went through, they really filled in that key and essential part of our migration, right? Being able to support us, guide us, educate us with best practices. The transition was not always smooth sailing. There were some kinks and bumps on the road. Sandy knows this.
Yeah.
But it's just really nice to know that there's someone there that we can actually lean on and fight for us, right? Another thing would be being able to have an open communication, like constant feedbacks. And I think this is very important for the growth and development of UAC, because these feedbacks improves the tool. And that constant feedback is not good for Google, but also for us, because we are the end users, right? So anything that will improve the tool helps us. And lastly, I wanted to add, I think we've been, it's like what Sandy said earlier, right? Patience. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for the machine to learn, and 2 to 3 weeks is definitely a long period of time for us to be able to optimize. Sure. We're so used to be instantaneously optimizing our campaigns day in and day out, because we see KPIs every hour we'll look at it, right? And so I think just patience and learn how to just sit back and let UAC take the wheel.
Great tips. I couldn't agree more, right? Like, having been in app marketing since 2010, like, it's been amazing how fast things are changing. And so I think it really is incumbent on all marketers to have some threshold for trying new things, experimenting. And ultimately, for Google, we're trying to build tools that help you drive more efficiency for your business, whether it's greater value or cheaper installs, whatever it may be. So really appreciate your partnership. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and advice today. And I hope you all found this very useful.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for dialing in.